Now you can hear. All right then. So today we're looking at the chapter that's called in the book, this thing called Living by Eric Butterworth. It's called Fretting or Letting. And in this chapter, beginning on page 80, the good man asks us a question. And the question is, how do you come into every new day? What way do you wake up in the morning? How do you proceed into your wakeful state? And he says, a good question to ask ourselves would be, what am I going to choose for myself today? And how do I choose to show up today? And he uses a scripture quote. He says, today, what will I choose? What will I choose today? Whom shall I serve today? Will I choose a blessing or will I choose a curse? Am I going to spend the day cursing the darkness, or am I going to spend the day blessing in the light? The choice is ours. Now, the reason why there's so much focus in this book on you and me and the lives that we're living is because life is a very precious commodity, and it's given to us to spend wisely and well and not squander. And every moment counts with regard to how you're going to feel in your life and how you're going to show up in your life and what you're going to do and be in your life. These are not questions we spend too much time thinking about when we jump out of the bed in the morning and run in and start brushing our teeth, etc. But yet, these are the seminal questions that help you and help me to live a purposeful, meaningful life. A life that is filled with satisfaction and fulfillment. And a life that you and I will be pleased about when we're finished with it here and we're out of Dodge and going on to something bigger and better, you see. And so every moment counts, and every new day, it brings with it its new blessing and its new gift, or not, as the case may be. It depends on you and on me being open and receptive to that. The rituals in the day are various and sundry. The first thing I usually do when I get up in the morning, which is my practice, I will go through the living room and I'll go to the double glass doors and I'll pull back the blinds and I'll call it a great and glorious day. I will namaste the day. I will namaste the day. I will greet the light in the day, and the light will greet the light in me. And so that's what I tend to do. That's my little ritual and what sets my mindset for the day. And it makes me mindful that I'm in a new day, and it's a time zone, and I can do within that time zone whatever I choose to do. But hopefully I am going to choose to do something that's going to make me not only feel better, but all life around and about me too. So that's the calling every single day you wake up. Choose this day a blessing or a curse. And it's not that any one of us are going to choose a curse unconsciously, not at all. That's the gift of being mindful. That's the gift of being awake, and that's the gift of being present. When I'm mindful, when I'm awake, when I'm present, I can choose to live purposefully in that day. If I'm not awake, if I'm not alert, if I'm mindless, if I'm unconscious, then I'm going to live randomly, I'm going to live neutrally. Now, living randomly is very dangerous. It could go any way or another. It's like throwing the dice. Random living is dangerous. Those dice may come up good or not so good for you. Living in neutral is equally bad, because neutral means you're stopped, you're stuck, you're going nowhere. To be neutral, don't ever say I'm neutral. There's no such thing. Neutral means stopped, stuck, going nowhere. Inability to move. So that's not a good way to live either. So what you and I are called to every day is to live life lifefully, lively, with an energetic and a dynamic that is sure to serve us well. And to make sure that the energetic and the dynamic is on the affirmative side of life. Now, he goes on to talk about fretters. Dr. Butterworth is talking about fretters, people who fret. And he says the definition for him of fretters is the people who are half fretting and half worrying and go around all of the time in that doomy, gloomy zone. And he says the profile of a fretter is somebody who not only frets and worries about their own lives and everything that's wrong and going bad in it, but everything that's wrong and going bad in the world too. You'll recognize a fretter through their tendency to tell you about everything that's wrong with life and living, about the terrible evils in the world, the rotten corruption that's going on, and so on and so forth. And they'll be able to tell you every negative thing about their own lives and about life in general. Well, if that's the ethos that you and I are living and moving in, it's not going to enliven us, it's not going to forward us, it's not going to help us, it's not going to heal us, it's not going to do anything but keep us feeling bad, down, in the dumps, gloomy and doomy. It does no good for me and anybody else either. And that's not why we are here. So you can ask yourself how much of this fretting you do in your life and living, because it's always, no matter what the stories are, they're always about us. They're always about me. Every line of scripture is about me. It's not about Israel somewhere in the past, the Hebrews down there back beyond in the ancient times. It's about me. It's about me. It's all about me, because there's only one sense and sensitivity in life, and we all experience it. We have an opportunity either to negate it or to affirm it, and we're doing it all the time. We're either negating life or we're affirming life, and there's no in between. It's one or the other, because if you're in neutral, you're stopped, you're blocked, you're stuck, you're static, you're going nowhere. You're paralyzed, you're the pillar of salt. And so you and I have the opportunity today and this week, if we're going to take on our spiritual life very seriously, and I think we're all here because we do take our spiritual unfoldment very seriously, and we do want to be serious students of truth, and we do really want to realize, to self-realize, to come home to ourselves and the greatness and the goodness of that, and live from the greatness and goodness of that, and I believe that's why we are here. And so when we're thinking about every little thing that we think about, and oh my gosh, do we think about every little thing, we have to understand that the thought process is given to me to enrich me, to empower me, to enliven me, to enlighten me, to advance me, and to serve me well. That's why I can think for those reasons. But that's not how I see it, how you see it so very often. Because very often, not understanding because we are mindless, not realizing because we are confused, not being able to make the most of our lives because we haven't honed our skills spiritually yet, we just make a whole bags of it at times. And we mess up, and we cause great hurt to ourselves and hurt to others, whether consciously or unconsciously, it doesn't matter. Hurt is hurt, you know. Sorrow is sorrow, suffering is suffering. But within each and every one of us is the tenacity, is the power, is the ability to overcome all of that. You look to the great teachers and you see how they did it. You look to the master teacher Jesus, and the one thing that was key to his power that stands out, truly stands out, was his ability to let go of his human self, the ability to master his egoic mind, the ability to not stop at the level of the human, the mortal way of thinking and living and moving. He was able to transcend that, and to the extent that he was able to step away from the human mortal aspect of his being, his egoic mind, to that extent was he able to enter into the divine aspect of himself. And so the more he separated himself from identifying himself with his humanity, and the more he identified himself with the divinity of himself, the more he became realized and realized and realized, until he became fully Christed. He became the Christ conscious awareness of himself, which is what he said you can do and I can do too, absolutely, unequivocally, and no ifs, ands, buts, and doubts about it. That's what the Master said. You can do this too. And so that means that you and I can also stop over-identifying with our egoic selves. with our humanity only, and start to really open up and let out that divine aspect of ourselves, the integrated aspect of ourselves, the intuitive, intelligent aspect of ourselves, the power that is within ourselves, to let that out and to use that and to live from that and to think from that and to feel from that, so that we're not run ragged all of the time by the egoic mind that's out of control. The egoic mind, out of control, is a tyrant, is frenetic in keeping us stopped and blocked, and it will not go easily into the night of change. It will fight every step of the way. Tooth and nail, you will be fought and I will be fought by the egoic mind that's used to being in control, that's used to having power, that's used to running us a merry chase. It's not going to give up easily. And that's where the beginning steps toward enlightenment are the most difficult of all steps, because it means I have to pause and I have to make the decision, because of a passionate and deep desire within me to be enough already with this stuff and to want to have the more that keeps tickling me all the time and calling me all the time to its presence and to its experience. And so those are the first steps, and they're the most difficult steps, because I have to turn myself around, turn myself inside out, and I have to change the way I have been thinking, the way I have been feeling, the way I have been doing, the way I have been living my life. And there's no other way of coming into enlightenment. That is the only way. And there's nothing in the way of me and the goodness that I know is here for me and I'm supposed to have, except my own resistance to change. My resistance to change. Oh my goodness. OMG for me is oh my goodness. Oh my goodness me. Oh my goodness me. You may think that you're very open to change and so on and so forth. You're not. No way, and neither am I. I have to work on it, and so do you. Because when you get into a groove, and you get into momentum, when you get into a habit, when you get into a way, you think it's easier to stay in it than to leap out of it. But it's not. And what the good doctor is saying to us today, do we want to fly? Do we want to lunge or lounge? You know? Do we want to go ahead? Do we want to soar? Do we want to overcome? Do we want to really move through whatever we think the obstacles are for us to move through in order to be the person we know we can be, the person we want to be, the person we dream about being? Because we can. But it takes hard work, hard work. I am telling you. And I've discovered it for myself. Coming to church on a Sunday and singing a few songs and coming to a class now and again and taking a seminar and reading the latest book on the bestseller list of spiritual books and going to the latest guru in town doesn't do it for us. It doesn't do it for us. In fact, it frustrates the living daylights out of us, because when we start doing all the things they tell us to do and it doesn't happen, we go, see, it doesn't work. That was a waste of money. And that's because these things are not supposed to do it for us. They're wonderful, and they are a facilitator, and they help us get in the mood. They help us get in the mood. They help us to open up and to be receptive to what we have to do for ourselves, and only what we can do for ourselves. To mend ourselves, to fix ourselves, to heal ourselves, to fulfill ourselves, to celebrate ourselves. That has to come from within here. And as I was sharing this morning, long, fado, fado, fado. That in Irish means long, long, long ago, in a land far away. You know, out of the, you know, out of the great religions of old, and Hinduism, the beginning of it, when the enlightened ones felt that there was something needed more than what was going on around them or what they were doing, and they got this urge, the urge was to remove themselves from the human strife and life and the busyness of the embodiment, and they went into fasting. They fasted, and then they went into the wilderness. They went up into the hilly country. They went out into the deserts. They went out into the forests and into the jungles to be away, to be in the silence, to be in the quietude, to sit and wait upon the divine, as Scripture says. Sit and wait upon the Lord. Sit and wait upon the divine. And then, having spent however time it was for them to spend there, which always was a long time. In Scripture you hear a lot about 40 this and 40 that and 40 the other. Well, it just means a very long time. It took them a very long time. It's symbolic for a long time. Then, when they had made the transition and they had quietened the egoic mind, brought the egoic mind into balance, when they had emptied themselves of all of the angst and the annoyance of the busyness of the embodiment, and had aligned themselves with the spirit of life within them, the divinity within them, when they were in touch consciously with the intuitive intelligence within them, they came back. They came back into the community, back to the people with what they had gleaned. And what did they come back with? They came back with one thing alone. And the reason for that is, in those days, fado, people didn't sit around and discuss God the way you and I do, because God was too sublime for that. There's no way they were going to sit down and discuss God, argue about God, and pontificate about God in that way, in that human casual way, that you would talk about politics or the weather or football or whatever it is. No, they had such an awe. They were filled with wonder. They were filled with awe. They were filled with mystery. They were filled with the ineffable. Ineffable means you can't describe it, you can't talk about it, you can't even imagine it. It's just so beyond us. So they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't sit around and talk about that. So when they came back, what did they do? They came back. And there they were, this burning, burning light and radiant energy, this amazing consciousness that was awake, this unified state in which they were. What was it they shared with the people? And what they shared with the people was, beloved, love yourself, honor yourself, respect yourself, because God dwells in you as you. That's all they had to share. There was nothing else to say. There were no lessons to give, no books to read, no seminars to attend. And then they lived in the community as the light that they had morphed into, because they had allowed it through them. They had allowed it as space to shine forth from them. The light that was always within them, that is within you and within me now, this minute. Brilliant, radiant, magnificent, full of intelligence, full of life and full of light and full of love and full of beauty and full of peace and full of power and full of joy. Right now, all of that within you, awaiting your recognition like the enlightened ones, awaiting you to start relating to your truth, your true being, the light that you are, so that you can wake up to and bring that great, glorious, amazing grace, the chi, the shakti, whatever you want to call it, to the community, and warm and uplift the community as a consequence of that. It's there within you. But it's not going to happen until you too are ready to fast from the toxicity of a negative mindset, to fast from all that would hinder and upset and disrupt yourself or another or others through the way that words are mindlessly used, thoughts are carelessly kept, and deeds are badly done. That's our work. The fasting must be in every day of our lives from toxicity and the garbage that it brings as a result of negative thoughts, feelings, and deeds. Fasting, and then we must enter into the silence and be still so that we can what? Listen and become aware. Listen to the language of divinity, which is not like our language at all, but listen to the language of divinity and listen to the awareness of what it is to feel that power and feel that presence. There is no other way, my dear ones. There is no other way, and I don't care what spiritual group you find yourself in. None of them are going to give you anything that's going to do it for you. This is the only thing you have to know. Beloved, love yourself, honor yourself, respect yourself, because God lives in you as you, right now. Right now. There's nothing for you to do. You can stop your doing. There's only for you to think and to feel and to be. So the thinking has to be on I am an individualized expression of life itself. In the beginning you could say, whether I know it or not, whether I believe it or not, whether I feel it or not, that's the truth. I am an individualized expression of the Almighty, the Most High, the Magnificent, the All-Powerful, the All-Knowing, the fullness, the plenty, the wholeness, the completeness of life itself. That's who I am and what I am in aspect and in expression, if I so choose to be. But I have to choose this day the blessing and stay away from the curse if I want to live that out in experience and in expression. There is no other way. I must keep away from the darkness, and I must keep out of the pools of negativity and away from the storms of toxicity and so on. You know what that is for you. I don't have to spell it out for you. You know what your job is, particularly, personally, your job. You know what the task is for you. You know what you're resisting. Nobody else knows it better than you know what you are still resisting. And there's a whole lot of resistance in this world, and let us not add to it. So resist not evil, Scripture says. Don't worry, Scripture says, about evildoers. Just trust in God. Just delight in God, and all the deep desires of your heart will be fulfilled. Just trust in God. That's all we have to do. So for you and for me, life is not a funeral dirge. It is a lively march. We are not mourners. We are masters. That's what we're called to being. Are you ready for the next step? Are you ready for the fasting? Yes. You're ready for the fasting? Yes. Are you ready after the fasting to go into the silence and into the quiet? Yes. Are you ready this minute now to start recognizing your truth? Yes. Can you look in the mirror every morning and say to yourself, beloved, beloved? Well, I can't wait to hear what you see when you look into that mirror. And you say, beloved, and then add on all the good things about yourself and go away hop, skipping and jumping and bring some good as your good self into the day, yes? And so it is.
We invite you to experience Dr. Moira in person on Sundays. Our services are at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., and childcare is available. Please join us. If you enjoy these messages and would like to make a donation to our center, please visit our website at redondocsl.org. Thank you for your support of this ministry.